Good morning. Whoa, that sounded awful. What happened there? I'm drowning in my own phlegm to start the show. Not a hot start on this Wednesday, but we're happy to have you here. Either way, 615-737-1045 is the number. That's how you jump in at any point. We got Lucas, we got Jackson, we got Steve Cavendish of the Nashville Banner hanging out in studio with us. Steve, it's lovely to see you. If you want to control your own mic, you're welcome to do so, or Jackson can do it for you.
Look at that. I can talk into a mic. Awesome.
You sure can, bud. He does that on a regular basis, as a matter of fact, for 440 Sports. You can check him out there on the podcast network, as well as the Nashville Banner, the Nashville Scene. A little bit of Steve Cavendish everywhere, it seems.
I try to spread myself wherever it'll go.
Yeah, me too. Working out swimmingly so far. We're happy to have you at any point today, 615-737-1045. That's the number. Steve is here because there is a mayoral race going on in the city of Nashville right now. And while that is not something that I'm sure many of you wanted to hear me say into a sports talk radio station to start your Wednesday, there are several sports-relevant, sports-related issues that are worth discussing based on these candidates. And Steve has been documenting this on a regular basis, the biggest issues that face these mayoral candidates who are going to have to replace John Cooper after he has decided to not run for re-election at this point.
It's there's been I didn't think that sports was going to play very much of a role in this election, because I thought that like the two biggest things, the two biggest deals the city might do, were all going to get done long before these elections happen. And then here's a Titan Stadium deal that pushes into the spring. And then there's a racetrack deal that the Cooper administration is trying desperately to get done before they get out the door. And so all of a sudden you got sports right smack dab in the middle of every mayoral, vice mayor, and metro council race in the city. It's wild to see.
When's the last time that was the case? This many sports issues happening at the forefront of a mayoral race?
It had to have been in the formative years of the sports teams, one would imagine, around here.
I would have to say you'd have to go back to kind of the Bredesen days and sort of like the Nashville Yes campaign, because there was a referendum that kind of put it on the ballot. But it's been like that since you've really had sports kind of in the middle of everything.
So it does seem, and maybe it's just because of how these things fell within John Cooper's administration, but there has been a lot of sports-related issues that have come up during his tenure in the mayor's office, and obviously the stadium deal now moving forward at this point. The racetrack situation is something that was in the news quite some time ago, faded from at least top-of-mind consciousness for a period of time because Geodis Park was built, Nashville SC was having success. People forgot that there was an agreement there that if you were going to do the stadium deal, that the Nashville racetrack, the Nashville Fairgrounds racetrack was also going to be a part of that in a mixed-use lot. And so now why is this reemerging at this particular time?
I mean, I think it was like at the NASCAR Awards in like either December of 20 or 21, where they sort of announced that they had this kind of term sheet with the city and that they were going to do this sort of deal. It's a big deal. Racing's been in Nashville for forever. I mean, originally there was horse racing out at the fairgrounds, and then became car racing, and they built this speedway up, and it has a lot of historic significance, particularly within NASCAR realm. The NASCAR realm, they used to run dedicated NASCAR races every year out there. I think they haven't since the mid 80s. But racing fans have wanted NASCAR back for a long time. And in Cooper, they had somebody who was their advocate. Cooper and particularly one of his aides have been strong supporters of the racetrack and racing. And they his time's running out. When Cooper announced and kind of surprised everybody back in the spring and said, "Hey, I'm not going to run for re-election," all of a sudden there was a real urgency to kind of get this across the line, because I don't know. We have asked the other candidates about racing. They're lukewarm about sort of this deal. I think there's a real sense of urgency to get this across the line. Otherwise, it may be another year or two before you see something comparative come back before the council and the mayor.
At Cavendish is where you can follow our guest, Steve Cavendish. He's hanging out in studio with us. We're talking about the sports issues on the ballot or that are going to be a part of the decision in what is going to be Nashville's upcoming mayoral election. Early voting getting ready to start, by the way.
Starts on Friday. And if you missed, if you're not registered to vote, the deadline is already passed for that, but there's going to be a runoff in September for mayor and probably for a bunch of the council races, certainly some of the at-large races. So you're going to have another chance to register to vote and vote in those September elections too, if you missed your chance now.
So we're going to talk about the candidates in the upcoming segment, but for John Cooper, let's start with the surprise of him not running for re-election. What seems to be the reason or the logic behind him? Because, most politicians, in my experience, don't tend to want to leave power early.
I would say that, and I'd say this is true for anybody who's been mayor of a big city during, in the last 4 years. You had to deal with COVID, and it was exceptionally hard on your city managing it. You've seen a wave of different kinds of responses. Some cities very strict, some cities very loose. A lot of contentious debate over it, and I think mayors around the country are pretty beaten up just in general. And I don't think Cooper's any exception there. Also, there's been this kind of growing, and I've written about this a couple times. There's been this kind of growing feeling that the city's on the wrong track. Pollsters ask what's called a right track, wrong track question, typically in a lot of polls, and it's simply, do you think Nashville is going the right direction or the wrong? And that number's been upside down now for a while, and it doesn't matter who you are. That is hard to run. It's a hard environment to run for re-election in, and Cooper's no different. I think Cooper probably would have been a strong candidate for re-election, even though some people, Freddie O'Connell and Sharon Hurt and Matt Wilshire, had gotten in the race to run against him. Excuse me. I was scrambling. This nice new studio here, man. I couldn't find
the fear in his eyes.
I couldn't find the cough button. I mean, there's nowhere to go. I mean, you got video up here,
buddy. I opened the show
literally
the first words out of my mouth were covered in phlegm. Like it's not that deep. It's okay. Radio is a disgusting business. Yeah.
But Cooper surprised a lot of people, and I think he was just tired of kind of like how hard this job is. He had said he wanted to come in and fix the city's finances. They're largely fixed. They had an announcement yesterday that the city's bond rating is up. So they had done like a lot of the work that they set out to do, and he's been able to take some of like the COVID funds and some of the infrastructure funds that have been flowing into the city here to point in different directions. He has a big homeless initiative that they put $50 million behind. I mean, I don't blame him. Declare victory, go home. That is being mayor is a hard job. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I don't blame anybody for taking a beating for 4 years and then saying, you know what, I have more pleasant things to do with
it's enough. I can get paid to do paid speaking engagements and things like that. I don't need this in my life at this point.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about the mayoral candidates who are going to look to replace John Cooper and the kind of sports issues that are going to help decide this upcoming Nashville mayoral election. We're actually having smart, nuanced conversation around here on the radio show today. Lucas looks pissed about it. Steve Cavendish is in studio. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Steve Cavendish hanging out in studio. The Nashville mayoral race is ongoing, and Steve has been covering it as closely as anyone for the Nashville Banner. You can read his write-ups in the Nashville scene. Of course, there are many sports issues revolving around what these candidates are going to be asked about and decisions that they will have to make. And so we're talking about it from a sports perspective, but also trying to get as much of the picture as humanly possible around here. Are you comfortable taking calls or questions?
Yeah, let's go.
615-737-1045 if you want to get into the Nashville Fairgrounds racetrack discussion, the Titans Stadium, and how it's going to impact these things. We'd be happy to take your phone calls, 615-737-1045. So the Titans Stadium deal is now, cut, dried, underway, and we'll see how long it takes this thing to actually get off the ground.
Groundbreaking next year, I think.
So at this point, John Cooper, as he gets ready to leave office and not run for re-election, where will that stack up in the list of things that he is going to be remembered for accomplishing? Because from the sports side of things, Steve, you know what it is for an owner to get a city to help them build a stadium. Now, this deal is being presented to people as taxpayer-friendly and Davidson County-friendly. But I wonder what initial questions that you had once you understood that the Titans were going to get a new stadium, and now what questions you still have, given that this thing is going to move forward in full force.
In theory, when they say it doesn't affect the taxpayers, what they mean is that the revenues that are being captured in and around the stadium are going to pay for the deal. That's it from like 20,000 feet. And what the problem was and you guys have covered this on air before, but I mean the problem was there's a lease for Nissan Stadium right now, which is not a good lease in the sense that the city's on the hook for a lot of money. In improvements, there's some language in there about it being a first-class facility. It is not a first-class facility. I don't think I'm out of bounds by saying that. If you've been to a game at Nissan here recently, I don't think you would look at that and then look at SoFi on your screen or Jerry World or wherever else and say, wow, these are all the same thing. They are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so the city was looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in upgrades. And when you start talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and they start talking about replacements, and then the Titans have been having this conversation with mayors for years. I mean, there was supposedly a deal with the Briley administration, but that got caught up in kind of like, well, let's wait until after an election, and Briley wasn't the mayor anymore, and so Cooper ends up with this, with this deal. The state put in $500 million, which made it a dome. You have all of these sort of factors here. And Cooper wants to do it because Cooper's legacy is going to be the East Bank, and kind of like changing all of that from being like just a stadium and parking lots to being kind of a mixed use, having people live there, to having businesses over there, to really developing out that side of the river.
The stadium is just a piece. It's a talking point for the East Bank.
But it was an important sort of linchpin for the East Bank, and that's what sort of makes it work. And his vision for the East Bank is this essentially new neighborhood downtown, and that's what Cooper's legacy is. We won't see a lot of that for 10, 20 years. But people are going to say, well, Cooper was the mayor with the stadium, the same way they say Bredesen was the guy who got us the Titans and the original stadium. But that whole area is his legacy.
So with that being said, anytime a team and a city propose a stadium plan or things like this, because one of the worst examples out there, and I don't know how big a baseball fan you are, Steve, but like David Sampson, who we have on the radio show from time to time because he's now working in media, the former Miami Marlins president, got a stadium built in Miami. They have Pat Riley out here for promising green space around the stadium, all these things that never actually came to fruition. It's been an eyesore and a blight on Major League Baseball for basically the entirety of its existence, and there are more problems and more false promises or things that are just said as a means to make people feel better about the idea of it than actually come to fruition. So how realistic is what they're proposing for the East Bank, with the stadium being that linchpin.
I think it's very realistic. So the question is like, how is that area going to develop? And the city has all of this land here in the middle of it, which they need to activate in order to have retail, in order to have housing, in order to have businesses and build all around it. But when you drive from downtown to East Nashville, you're driving through a nothing, a wasteland. You have the former PSC Metals site over on one side. You have all these parking lots on the other, and it's weird because you go from like this really vibrant downtown to this really vibrant East Nashville, and this sort of wasteland in between.
A literal wasteland.
A literal wasteland. A literal junkyard right there to your right. And so every mayor has wanted to do something over here. PSC Metals is still kind of a part of this that they're trying to get out. Carl Icahn, who's the activist billionaire, that I think at various points he's been called like a raider or just a really rich activist guy, and he has not wanted to do a deal that gets that scrapyard out. And so I think the next mayor, that'll be on their list as well, to like try to get that. Because if you had all that land right there, what could you do with it? The Cooper folks have floated the idea of putting the new TPAC there, because TPAC's going to have to move from downtown, putting a school for the performing arts there, and kind of like all these sort of kind of cultural pieces that go along with like all of the retail and business and everything else that's going to go through there. But that's like the biggest unactivated part of the center part of the city. So it's going to happen. I'm much more confident of that than say that stadium deal in Miami, where it went into an area that was like already kind of largely developed. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of carving out space for it, and maybe the promises. I'm not as familiar with the deal. The promises weren't there. That may be a Miami thing.
Sure, it's. I mean, that would be very, very Miami, just kind of emptiness or a surface level type of situation. So now to the candidates who are running to replace John Cooper. I mean, it's a fairly substantial list, but who are the candidates that are realistically actually in the race to win this job?
So I think that there's 13 on the ballot. There are really 8 candidates that have raised significant money. The people that have been elected to countywide office, or they have done sort of a lot. So of that, you would say Matt Wilshire, who's raised the most money, Freddie O'Connell, who is the downtown council member, Alice Rowley, who is kind of the lone Republican in the race, and you would say that she has the maybe a lower public visibility, but she also has kind of a path to getting into a runoff if she can kind of consolidate conservative and Republican votes. But if you've turned on a TV over the last 3 months, you've seen a Jim Gingrich ad.
Yeah.
And he's poured millions into this. I think by our count, like about 2.3 million that he's spent already in the race. Jeff Yarborough and Heidi Campbell, we talked about how Cooper got out, and as soon as he got out, like a bunch of people got in. So Yarborough and Campbell, both state senators, both decided to get in. And Vivian Wilhoit, who's the property assessor, decided to get in as well. And so it's a really crowded field. I think the big problem is that a lot of people are having trouble getting their message out. Wilshire and Gingrich have enough money to be on air, and that's certainly one way to do it. But everybody's having trouble messaging right now, and it's reflected in the polls. I saw a poll a few weeks ago that said that 40% of the county was undecided right now. That's a big number here, 6 weeks to a month out from the election. Usually you see that number be at about like 25%. So my guess is that we're not going to have a really good idea who's going to be in the runoff until we may not even know when the polls close.
So that's That's interesting to me from this standpoint. Is it just because the field is so crowded at this point that people are, it's just kind of in one ear, out the other type of situation, unless you're seeking out the mayoral debates that the Tennessean is live streaming on their YouTube channel and going through and reading all these individual pieces? Like, is it just so much at once that even as we are really, really close to this actually being voted on, that people are, getting so much information and still not able to kind of discern between them?
Well, I think that's part of it. There is an information overload. We turned on if you go to NashvilleBanner.com/vote, that's our voters guide. We have Q&As with all the candidates. We have video interviews. We have in-depth stories on a bunch of the issues that are facing the candidates right now. And it's a lot to absorb right now. I think by and large, and I was talking to somebody this morning, someone who has been in politics, who has been in the city government, who is knowledgeable about all these things and knows a lot of these candidates, and even they were undecided as to who they were going to vote for, and they mentioned 3 or 4 names that they thought that they might be able to vote for. I think that if the high information people are having a trouble figuring it out, people who are just now starting to pay attention, really, it's a slog.
It's overwhelming.
It is a big fat slog.
Steve Cavendish, the Nashville Banner, in studio with us. We're talking about the Nashville mayoral race and where sports kind of impacts the ballot at this point. At Cavendish is where you can follow him. Lucas, do you want to do the baseball stuff now? Because I've got a few more questions, but I know the whole reason that one of the reasons that we've brought Steve in here is because I very much enjoy how much he enjoys pointing out the baseball situation here in Music City.
The press release operation here in town?
Yeah, exactly. The F&M Bank chat is blowing up. That's the question we're getting constantly about baseball to Nashville, to Nashville. Chad says the Sounds aren't worth losing out on a pro team. Other people saying, I don't want to lose the Sounds. I'm just curious how you process these things when it comes to all the noise around expansion into Music City.
Well, and also, Steve, the fact that people are immediately taking there when to my knowledge, that has zero impact on what these candidates are actually getting ready to work through. That's not a real thing.
Well, and so here's what I would say about baseball. Until you have a capital B billionaire attached to it, and until you have a viable stadium plan that is almost entirely from private money, you do not have a scenario where baseball is going to expand in Nashville. Now, if you get both those things, you can absolutely do it. But I think what the Titans stadium deal and the trouble that the headwinds that the racetrack deal are running into right now show is that the appetite for significant stadium expansion here in the city is low. The racetrack folks share a pollster with the Titans folks. Mm-hmm. There's a guy named Fred Yang. He's a great pollster. He's done a lot of work over like 30 years for local candidates here. In the racetrack poll that came out, I don't know, it's about a month ago at this point, they put a Titans question in there and they said, hey, this Titans deal just passed. How do you feel about it? It was underwater. It was 42% supported, 51% were against it, and that's the Titans pollster, and so that gives you an indication of where just kind of globally the appetite is in the city for what a new stadium would be. Because MLB is notorious for kind of like trying to wring public money out of cities. DC is still paying for the $700, $800 million national stadium from a few years ago. There are, unless somebody has like a pot of money, so that means that. So what do you need? Like $1 billion for the expansion, or to buy somebody the rights and move them over here? You need $1 billion to build a stadium. So you're talking about like $2 billion out of the gate, and you're not even talking about how much you're going to spend on the actual team.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money until that materializes. And the Nashville Stars put out a press release, I think every other week, and about like, oh hey, look, we just added Hootie to the group of people that are supporting baseball here in Nashville, and that's great. Glad Hootie's a baseball fan. They are still no nearer to doing this than they were, when they were 5 years ago. And Dave Stewart is a legend, but Dave Dombrowski was a legend too, and he said,
"Oh, he did a whole PR campaign around here." I remember me and Brent interviewed him during COVID. It was right after his big press release that he was joining their organization.
And then Dombrowski is in Philly now.
Yeah,
because I don't know. I mean,
it's a real job.
It's a real job doing real baseball, and I'm an MLB skeptic in Nashville. Would I like baseball? Sure, man. I'm a sports fan. I'd love to go to games, but I'm really skeptical about the money and the stadium piece of it. And the other thing too is like, where are you going to put a stadium? I mean, when the
what do you mean, right in front of the pedestrian bridge, based on the renderings? I like what we're talking about. This East Bank development.
The bridge will lead into the stadium,
directly into the stadium.
I love it when you put out a rendering like on someone else's land. Be like, hey, look, here's wouldn't it be great to be here? Or they have floated like this idea of like doing it on land out by TSU. I mean, poke the neighborhoods around TSU a little bit and ask them if they want 30,000 people a night, ingress and egress through neighborhoods and through whatever else.
It's my neighborhood. No. They bleep off.
They absolutely do not. And so, where are you going to put it? Maybe in the suburbs. I don't know. Then you've got a Brave situation, and maybe Wilson County is finally going to step up and pay for something, or maybe Williamson's going to step up and pay for something. But we'll see.
So, with that being said, because it does make me think of those ridiculous renderings, like how big a political miscalculation was that alone? Because the amount of calls I got from people with the Titans organization be like, who the bleep do these people think they are? Like, not just from a sports standpoint, but what must the city have thought of these renderings that put a stadium directly on their grand designs for what they want the East Bank to be?
Well, and I look at this from like a media perspective too, which is people that are like uncritically sort of saying, "Oh, this is happening," and I see it pop up like every now and then. I'll see like a morning show segment, or I'll see some press release that ends up in the paper, and they don't ask any sort of critical questions about what the deal would look like and where the financing is coming from. Because I mean, what have we learned from the last 6 months in this town? Sports is about money and financing, and like kind of how it all pulls together. And if you don't have those basic questions answered, it's fine to kind of like think about baseball and want baseball. I mean, I do too. I'm a sports fan, but I don't see where it's happening right now. Give me a billionaire.
I mean, one fell out of the sky for the soccer team, but Vanderbilt happens to have one or two roaming around the halls. At this point, Steve Cavendish, by the way, in studio, Nashville banner at Cavendish is where you can follow him. You can also check him out on the 440 Sports Network. He does the Lame Stream media podcast that interviews people in sports, well, not just sports media, but in media, both locally and nationally, and has also done some work with Braden Gall on the Pod Bless Nashville podcast, where they're interviewing mayoral candidates, as a matter of fact, and you can check out those long-form interviews there. Subscribe, follow, well, not subscribe and follow. I think it's follow now, rate and review.
Rate, review, subscribe.
There it is. Look at him. He's got the line down. So the Nashville Fairgrounds racetrack situation, how big of a focus is that? You said that most of the candidates have declared themselves, or have not necessarily declared themselves, but have stayed racing neutral at this point. What kind of implications does that situation have for whomever becomes the next mayor of Nashville?
Except for Jim Gingrich, and Jim Gingrich had an ad out that said it's a bad deal and here's what I would do differently, and spent put a couple $100,000 and like really made the racing supporters here in town mad. Matter of fact, there was a deep fake of the ad that they had, like their version of it that they had done, that was up on a Twitter account for a minute. That then got pulled down. They're really, really mad at Gingrich, and we wrote a little bit about this last week on the banner. They even kind of said, hey, if you don't pull your ads, then we're going to start running ads against you. Might not be a great use of money, but again, I'm not spending somebody else's money. But the candidates themselves, you're right, have tried to stay out of this. I think that when you ask them about these deals, they're skeptical in general. I think I think the job of any mayor is to look at possibilities and see kind of what it is. And so, I mean, do I think that John Cooper came into this administration thinking I'm going to do a Titans deal? No, but this was the thing that kind of ended up in front of him, and that's what mayors do. They evaluate them, and they either do the deal or they don't. And being mayor is a lot different than being candidate. And so I think what you're seeing is people kind of leaving themselves some wiggle room if they are mayor and trying not to be absolutist about this. But, you know, Freddie O'Connell is the only one who has said, I was against the Titans deal. I don't think it's a good deal. And I think he said, you know, I'm against the racetrack deal as well. I think his line was, I don't think the numbers add up. Most of the field has tried to just kind of generally avoid it and kind of let it play out.
Steve Cavendish, kind enough to give us some of his time at Cavendish, is where you can follow him. The Nashville Banner is where you can read him, and also making appearances in the Nashville scene. They had a really good mayoral race preview issue, or updated preview issue, in the last couple of weeks that I would highly recommend. So go check out all of Steve's work there.
That was all made out of Banner articles. You can read those. You know, if you want those articles in your inbox, go to NashvilleBanner.com. Give us your email. We're happy to send them to you.
Give us your email right now.
Your email or your life.
Thanks for hanging out, buddy.
Thanks,
I
man.
really appreciate the conversation. This was good, and I know the audience is going to appreciate it. Coming up next, Lucas has been very, very quiet, so we're going to give him his microphone back and let him do some SEC observations. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Well, that was fun. Much appreciated for Steve Cavendish of the Nashville Banner coming in to hang out with us. If you want great local reporting and information, you can check out the NashvilleBanner.com and go get subscribed to their newsletter on a regular basis. It's really, really good stuff. Whether it's sports, politics, or otherwise, they have you handled. 615-737-1045 is the number. Do we want to take phone calls before we get to Lucas's SEC observations? Oh, okay.
There are no phone calls.
Got it. Well, there is one, but that's not for on air.
They don't want to talk to you, Buck.
I understand. You might understand my confusion why somebody would call in not to speak to us, but I get that too. You want to do some SEC observations? Do we need music for this one or not? What's the deal?
The SEC observations today as we watch the Tennessee takeover on SEC Network all day from midnight to midnight.
Is that why you ran in the other room? Because I was watching, I was enjoying.
The Price is Right?
Yes.
You want to put The Price is Right back on?
It was hard for me to focus on what Steve Cavendish was saying because I was shocked at how old Drew Carey looks. I think that show actively ages you in the way that football coaches and presidents do.
I miss Whose Line Is It Anyway?
It's a great
with
show.
Drew Carey.
It's a great
I used to watch
show.
that all the time.
It was always on.
Always on.
So why did you insist? I mean, it's fine to watch this Orange Bowl again. I know how impressive Joe Milton looked in this, and it is, in fact, Tennessee Day on the SEC Network. But, you just couldn't let me have a couple moments of The Price is Right?
Nope.
Okay.
Falls up 14-3. Oh, look at Jackson. Minute 47 to go in the second quarter. About to punt it back to Clemson as we look forward to watching Clemson drive all the way down the field and then Cade Klubnik taking a terrible sack and running out the clock in field goal range before halftime. But we're not here to talk about Tennessee, at least not right now, because my oh-no of the weekend yesterday was Georgia football. Freshman outside linebacker Samuel Mpemba ticketed for driving 88 in a 55 just the other day. Kirby Smart has spoken on it. I'm sure he'll be asked to speak on it a little bit more next week here in Nashville for SEC Media Days. Buck, before I read this quote, how many traffic-related moving violations have involved Georgia football players and their cars since January 15th?
January 15th of this year.
Of this year. Handful of months.
Less than 7. Just less than 7. Yeah. I would say there have been 5.
11.
Well, stop. I thought about doing the thing where I go so far above and beyond the number that you're going to give me so I completely undermine you, but I'm glad that I did not. That's awful.
So Chris Lowe wrote a story on this on ESPN, and here is an excerpt from his article. He says, Mpemba's citation was at least the 11th. I love how he says at least. Who knows what's out there that we don't know about?
I mean, well, that's what it got down to with Isaiah Wilson DUIs.
Yeah.
It was the ones that we knew about and could confirm, and then there were all the other ones that were reported around how many different vehicles he wrecked.
He says at least the 11th traffic-related moving violation involving Georgia football players.
Should we count him, by the way? Should we count Isaiah in this?
Well,
that might double the number.
Yeah, he's a part of this whole big picture that this seems to be this weirdly specific trend with this one football program. Obviously, there's been extremely tragic cases that resulted in the deaths of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix earlier in January. So it is a very serious problem happening in Athens. Kirby Smart told reporters during a news conference yesterday, quote, I'll be the first to admit we haven't solved that issue or problem. I don't honestly know that anybody has, but certainly for us, it's important to acknowledge it first. We've had a lot of intervention in terms of talking and visiting, and discipline measures have been implemented in terms of education. We will continue to do that. He goes on, he says it's a tough situation to manage when you have 18 to 22-year-old men. A lot of them are driving for the first time. Say every fall we have 25 new guys. We've averaged 5 guys that have come in here at 18 years old with no driver's license, and we continue to work on that. I don't have the exact answer. I wish I did, but we continue to work at it. I'm a little confused by this quote where he says, I'm one of those that believes abuse brings control and will continue to educate our players the best we can and try to do a better job with
I'm
it.
sorry, what?
I know, I had to read that quote a few times. I believe that abuse brings control. I don't know if I like that from Kirby. Maybe he's just not wording that the right way. I think he's trying to say, trying to educate. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to explain from Kirby Smart right now.
Wait. So remind me again where this press conference was given?
Oh, this was just a news conference, I assume, with Georgia reporters.
Okay, but nobody asked to follow up? And now let me say this, not to excuse the reporters, but a lot of times in these press conferences, you're tweeting out quotes, you're tweeting out videos, you're waiting to ask your question. You can miss something every once in a while that otherwise, when you read it back, would immediately demand a follow-up to anybody who's reading it. So it's entirely possible that people might have missed that line.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty shocking line to read back.
Yeah, I would like some more explanation on that from Kirby Smart, because I definitely did a double take when I read that. Because I wanted to read, surely he's saying, I don't believe abuse brings control.
And it might, I mean, I want to be careful with that without having seen the press conference myself.
I don't think there's a typo in Chris Lowe's article. Either way, it used to be a running joke. Like Steve Spurrier famously said one year at SEC Media Days, I love that we play Georgia early in the season because they're almost guaranteed to have 2-3 players suspended. It was a running joke under Mark Richt at Georgia that routinely, year after year in the offseason, players would be suspended for the early portion of the season. But looking at it now, at least Mark Richt was taking action. You know what I mean? I mean, Georgia certainly had that reputation, but at least Mark Richt was actually suspending players. There seemed to be consequences in Georgia football for these type of instances. And Ron Slay made a good point I heard yesterday on 3HL that it's not like these are the biggest stars of the program. Yes, Jalen Carter, certainly one of the biggest stars of Georgia football over the last couple of years. There was that whole issue. But guys like Marcus Rosenby, Jack Saint, guys like Samuel Mpemba, these were high-profile recruits that are still waiting their turn, so to speak, and are doing these things that just seem to be out of control of the football program. These are depth guys for the most part that this is happening with. And it's really mysterious. Why is this the thing that's happening? And they were talking about it on 3HL also yesterday, the open roads in Athens. That, you can just go flying down those roads. Nobody's on those roads in that part of the state. I don't know. It's really hard to figure out. And I'm sure Kirby Smart is tearing his hair out on why do my players keep getting into cars and going 90 miles per hour in 55?
Not enough, it seems, because they keep doing it. Ultimately, Kirby Smart is going to be held responsible for the actions of his players. The players who commit the infractions will also be held responsible to a degree, it would seem. But this is going to be put on Kirby, especially now that there's a trend and he can't seem to get a handle on it. Now, again, this is a longer conversation probably, but there's a really good podcast series that's being done by The Athletic right now by Jordan Rodriguez. It's called The Play Callers. It focuses on Sean McVay, on Matt LaFleur, who was the Titans OC for a while, coming out of that Rams tree, Mike McDaniel in Miami, and Kyle Shanahan is kind of the place where that offensive system started. And to hear Sean McVay, who's been rumored about retiring from time to time, and we all look at him and say, you're 34, bleep yourself, you're not doing this. To hear how much that affects him as a person and how that just being in a football season affects him as a person and affects his personality, his relationships with other people. I can't imagine the amount of strain that somebody like Kirby Smart is in that is covered up by the fact that they are consistently now winning national championships.
He's acknowledging there's a problem. There is that. He is acknowledging in an honest moment, we have tried to address this. Clearly, we're not doing enough. We're going to keep trying. He'll continue to answer questions about it, I'm sure, at SEC Media Days next week.
What's the name of the highway in Germany? The Autobahn. The Autobahn. That has no speed limit.
Yes, that seems to be the state of Athens, Georgia. At the moment.
Athens Autobahn, baby. 615-737.
Oh, Klubnik just took that set.
That's a good place to go to break.
But them's the breaks.
It is 11:03. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Major League Baseball, Craig Kimbrell pitched the ninth for the National League and got the save for the NL to beat the AL in Seattle in the All-Star game 3-2. It's the NL's first win over the AL since 2012. Regular season picks back up on Friday. The saga continues at Northwestern as head coach Pat Fitzgerald, after being fired from his alma mater for allegations of widespread hazing within the football program, could set up a legal battle with the university. As his attorney says, Northwestern has fired Fitzgerald for cause. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. It's Wednesday. That means it's time for the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 is the number when you call in, when you give us your dumbest thing in sports this week. The best one will win a pair of tickets to tomorrow's charity bowling event at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs. We only have 5 tickets that are available left for purchase. So we are giving these tickets away. We will give another pair away tomorrow. And I think we will be able to give a third pair away on 3HL tomorrow. Not today, tomorrow, because I'm going to be out. They're going to be doing their show live from Kings Bowl. I'm going to be out there with them at Kings Bowl. So we'll do 2 pairs with us and then 1 pair with 3HL.
Slay was out there warming up yesterday.
Well, that's because he's a dope, and he kept telling everybody it was at Brooklyn Bowl. He thought it was still at Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, no.
He'd been saying all week. Somebody sent me the clip on air. So they had to tell Slay on air that it's at Kings Bowl this year.
I hope no one shows up to Brooklyn Bowl.
There's probably something going on at Brooklyn Bowl, but if you paid for tickets for this thing, it's at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs this year. Brooklyn Bowl was fun last year. Kings Bowl in Cool Springs will also be a lot of fun because they gave us a lot more lanes. So we have a lot more people that are going to be attending this year. And like I said, only 5 tickets left for purchase. So 615-737-1045. You give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. We'll send you to the bowling event tomorrow. Hit it.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot.
You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Reising Show.
615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? We got a couple of good ones. Jackson, do you have one today?
Yeah, I got you. Give me a second.
Okay, very good. I'll start. Everything that's going on with Michael Jordan's son and Scottie Pippen's ex-wife. They're dating. Larsa Pippen is dating Marcus Jordan. Michael Jordan is being asked questions about his son dating the ex-wife of his former teammate and fellow champion with the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan is being asked for comment out in public about the relationship between his son and his teammate's ex, and he has told media and TMZ and other people who are asking him these questions, saying emphatically on the July 4th weekend that he does not approve of it at all. And apparently, Larsa Pippen is saying that this has traumatized her. She's saying that the comments from her boyfriend's father, who I'm sure she also has an interesting relationship with at this point in her life. She's saying that those comments have traumatized her. Michael Jordan, who's last seen puffing a cigar on a boat in Italy, does not seem to care about traumatizing Larsa Pippen for disproving of her relationship with his son.
So Jordan not down. Not down with his son.
Well, Michael not down.
Right.
Marcus for sure
Michael,
down.
yeah, Marcus is down.
Marcus down.
Michael, because there is probably a perception, right, that Michael has just been enjoying the hell out of this.
Yes.
But he's coming out and saying he is not. So your dumbest thing in sports is who? Larsa herself?
Yes, the whole situation. Like, I understand. I'm going to sound as Caucasian as I've ever sounded in my life. The concept of homie hopping.
Right.
It's it's something that can be applied to men or women. But I would say to you, no matter what sex you are, if that's the path that you're going to go down, it's going to get a little complicated, going to get a little messy. The mess seems to be of her own creation. So Larsa in this situation, be my dumbest thing in sports.
So have we considered that this relationship is not, in fact, an attempt by the Jordans to get at Scottie Pippen, but maybe an attempt by Marcus to get at his own father?
Oh,
you can't tell me who I can date, Dad.
I really wanted it to be Michael being like, yeah, Marcus.
Hey, hit her up.
Slide in the DMs.
You hit her up, and then I'll make like a public statement that I totally disapprove of the relationship.
But really.
Just blow Scotty's mind. What a stupid situation.
Well, I mean, like the whole situation, it is the definition of, it's the top story on TMZ Sports today. It's the whole situation. You remember Will Smith and his quote unquote entanglement?
Okay, I love how you say that as if TMZ Sports is this like journalistic place to go to every other week.
They get stuff faster than we do.
Yeah, that's fair, but this is like the most TMZ sports story of all time.
No,
so yes, it's
July.
at the top of TMZ Sports.
It's July 12th. It's, there's only so much going on in sports. It was either that or dead wrestlers. Which would you rather me choose today?
My dumbest thing in sports is Zach Gelb. The Zach Gelb Show, who had Deebo Samuel on recently, the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver. We'll just listen to the audio from the interview.
Deebo Samuel here with us. Well, something that is your call. I saw what you said about the Eagles back at the Super Bowl at Sirius, where if Brock Purdy didn't get hurt, you guys would have won that game by double digits. Why would that have been the case?
I don't know. That's old.
So do you not still believe that?
I mean, I do, but I mean, we're not. That's like we're not gonna keep talking about it. I mean, I said what I said.
Gotcha. So then what happens this year when you play Philly on December 3rd?
I don't know. Just wait till, week 13, 12, whatever week it is, and we'll show you.
Well, then you know how that's going to go down. You're going into Philadelphia. Those fans are going to be booing you loud. You have a message for Eagles fans?
Hey, guys.
Yeah?
All right, we're good to go.
What do you mean? We have Deebo on right now.
Yeah, I know, but we're going to head into camp right now.
Are you serious? Okay. Thank you. There you
Thanks,
go.
Bye.
Deebo Samuel right there. Doesn't want to answer a few questions. Are you serious? We got hung up on because all we did was ask him about the quarterback situation and then Philadelphia? And we got hung up on by Deebo Samuel? That's a joke. An absolute joke.
Zach Gelb is the dumbest thing in
That's
sports
absurd.
this week.
Oh, he's still going.
Shut up, Zach.
We were told we have
Zach, shut up.
No. Let him keep going. Let him keep
minutes. And he didn't want to answer anything. So I've done this long enough. That was just get the promotional plug out of the way. Then you don't want to answer any questions, and you hand the phone off to the public relations person. What a joke that was.
Now I'm done with Zach Gelb. Yeah, he's right.
No, he's not. Zach is not right.
Well, he's right about what just happened, the transactional nature of the interview that he just did. He's 100% right about that. They're just there to get the plug off. They don't care about the questions you ask them after that.
Oh, well, sure. But he's not right in the idea that Deebo Samuel doesn't want to answer tough questions because Zach keeps ribbing him about something he said months ago about the NFC Championship game.
Oh, no, for sure.
Like when Deebo signals to you that's in the past, don't need to talk about that, move on. It's very clear this is not some journalistic integrity play by Zach Gelb. This is Zach Gelb trying to get something that he can blow up on his social media page of Deebo Samuel going at Philadelphia.
Zach went to Temple. I know this not because Bert told us this the other day, but because Zach and I share an agent. So
Temple, located in Philadelphia,
correct.
Pennsylvania.
So like there is enough there for me to think, okay, one, based on the line of questioning, and like I said, full disclosure, like we're represented by the same people. So I would not have done the interview that way. But also Zach is doing a different job than I do because his job at CBS Sports, a national radio show, is to try and get the quote. If he can get Deebo Samuel to say the thing about Philadelphia, then CBS Sports is going to run it through the machine. You're going to see it on all the graphics, and Deebo's out here throwing fuel on a fire ahead of a game that's, in December, he said?
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying, and that's not the way that I would choose, that any of us, I think, around here would choose to conduct an interview. If you could salvage it, that was not the way to salvage it.
Like as if Zach was asking something from the standpoint of a journalistic need for Debo to confront him about something Debo did. Like
That's correct.
If there was an off-field incident or if there was a blow-up on the sideline, something that Debo should be held accountable for. This is not one of those things. Zach acting like it is and like this is Debo Samuel dodging the tough questions. Get out of here. You're just looking for your clicks. You're looking for your clout. Debo didn't give it to you, and you're going to cry about it now, and you're going to pretend like Debo Samuel is a coward and won't answer your tough questions.
I can't wait till that gets sent to Zach the next time he asks me on a show to talk Titans.
Zach Gelb is my dumbest thing in sports.
Excellent. He has. Do you remember the moment with Aaron Donald a couple years ago?
Yeah, this happened with Donald.
Well, no, but that was different.
What was that about?
He swung a helmet at a Bengals player.
I'm saying, oh, right. This happened as in Donald, like, stopping the interview.
It was the similar setup.
Sure.
He was promoting, like, Old Spice or something like that.
Oh.
Zach, it was the day of the interview, and Zach continued to ask him questions about swinging a helmet at a player without another helmet on.
I would not, if this was the situation, I would not go in on Zach for that. Aaron Donald should be held accountable for swinging a helmet at another person. That's insanity. So, yeah, that is a completely different situation. It was similar in that Donald and their PR person stepped in, stopped the interview. But get out of here with, are you serious? You won't answer a question about Philadelphia? Like, no, dude, you tried it 3 different times. He clearly doesn't want to talk about an offhand comment he made months ago. Move on. You kept pushing the button. Debo has the right to hang up on your ass.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like, he wins either way. You know what I'm saying?
That's unfortunately true.
Now that is going to circulate in Philadelphia either way. And what are Eagles fans going to say? They're going to say Debo Samuel's scared of us.
Yeah, it's going to fuel the fire of that 49ers-Eagles. Like, not really a rivalry, right? But I guess it is right now.
Zach played it correctly. He played it very much correctly based on what he's trying to accomplish. I'm just saying the motives of what Zach appears to be trying to accomplish are not the motives that most people would take.
I hate this business sometimes.
See, you got it pretty easy. I'm not the worst of them. I got problems, bud, but I'm not the worst of them. We'll take your phone calls on the dumbest thing in sports this week. Coming up next, 615-737-1045. You give us the best one, we'll send you to the bowling event coming up at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs tomorrow night from 7 to 10 p.m. I'm Buck Reising. It's 1045 The Zone. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is coming up August 4th through the 6th. Speaking of the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, you can win some Turn 9 passes at the bowling event tomorrow. We are going to give away a Turn 9 all-inclusive pass to the highest score tomorrow at the bowling event. If you can't win one, if your bowling skills aren't up to par, you can still get them today at MusicCityGP.com. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is one of Nashville's premier events. Over the course of the last 2 seasons, it's been one of the best things that I have attended here in our city, and we set the bar pretty damn high. You will be unbelievably blown away by the racers themselves, by the cars whipping around downtown Nashville at 200 miles an hour. And if you're set up in the Turn 9 Club with us, you get all-inclusive food, all-inclusive beverage, and a great view of the track at Turn 9. To get your tickets today before they sell out, if you can't win them at the bowling event tomorrow, go to MusicCityGP.com. I've figured out why the Orange Bowl's on television. And so Lucas can check out the rest of the day and not pay attention to anything that I'm saying. What's happening right now? Should we test your play-by-play skills? They're coming up tonight. People can hear it, as a matter of fact, on the Nashville SC broadcast. Big game for Nashville SC at Geodis Park.
7:30 kickoff tonight. Pregame at 7 against Philadelphia Union. Tennessee with the ball. 3rd and 21. Ball spotted. I haven't read yard markers in so many months. Ball spotted on their own 42-yard line. Tennessee going right to left. Milton with the snap. Rolls left. Under pressure. Still under pressure. Milton hit and sacked. Tennessee forced to punt. I thought that the ball he threw when we came back from break was an interceptable ball to Ramel Keaton, but Keaton slipped, so it wasn't.
Look at you, already jumping down that man's throat. Football season with Joe Milton and Lucas is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to talk about Joe Milton with greater depth today because he's getting comparisons to Anthony Richardson that I think are complete nonsense at this point. But in the meantime, we're giving you the opportunity to win a pair of tickets to the bowling event coming up tomorrow. It's going to be an awesome time at Kings Bowl in Cool Springs. It is to benefit Home Street Home, an incredible organization that operates on donation and volunteer basis only by Stephen and Andy Young. They are helping the homeless community here in Middle Tennessee, and they need our help, so we're happy to help them raise money. But if you can't buy the tickets, because there's only 5 left as of 9 a.m. this morning, there were only 5 left. I get an email every day that tells me. So if you can't buy them at this point, then you still have the opportunity to win a couple of pairs over the course of the next, day and a half at this point. So let's see what you got. 615-737-1045. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? Wade in Nashville is first. Hey, Wade.
Oh, man, the absolute dumbest thing in sports is whoever was in charge of the graphic on ESPN when Vlad Guerrero Jr. won the home run derby.
Yeah, I heard they mixed up his nationality, yeah?
Yeah, he's Canadian, which is a little further from Cuba than most people think, and he's Dominican. So that guy probably lost his job.
I would say if you're the graphics guy, that is the fireable offense, yeah?
So they said he was...
That's the only thing you can mess up.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Wade. We appreciate it.
So they said he was Cuban, despite the fact that he was born in Canada and of Dominican descent.
That is correct.
Oof.
Of all the ways that you could have botched it.
Yeah, really made an assumption on that one, didn't you?
Sure did. So I would say if you're the person responsible for making that graphic and you didn't fact check, that's your job. You didn't do your job. I don't know that it's a pretty big spot. Because, you're like most people, I feel like. Well, I don't know. I don't know this by percentage, so I don't want to do this unfairly. But, you have been watching All-Star Week stuff, but you don't watch baseball.
It's really interesting. The most fun I have had, I've had fun watching baseball this year. None of it has involved the MLB regular season. None of it.
Yeah.
I've had fun watching college baseball. The World Baseball Classic was electric with the final between USA and Japan, the celebration. And the All-Star Game was a fun watch yesterday. The environment at T-Mobile Park was fantastic. It felt like a playoff game. We could talk about it a little bit later, but that's a great submission by Wade.
James in Nashville is next. Hey, James.
I'd have to say the U.S. women's soccer player, Megan Rapinoe, advocating for she's okay with men playing for the women's U.S. team, showing the world she still doesn't understand the difference between men and women.
Well, I'm not familiar with the headline, so I'm not sure what's it's in reference to. I know Megan Rapinoe has made many appearances in this segment. I know Megan Rapinoe is a polarizing person. But in terms of the comments that she made specifically to who I guess is allowed to play for the U.S. U.S. women's national team, I assume it's a transgender issue that's being referenced. But again, I haven't seen the comments from Megan herself, so I don't want to take anything out of context at this point.
USA opens the Women's World Cup with Vietnam next Friday.
Is that the? I mean, so what's the top headline?
They're expected to win.
For the Women's
are
World
the
Cup?
favorite. Yes, they are very much expected to win. They're in a group with Vietnam, Netherlands, and Portugal. World Cup happening in New Zealand. Yes, they are the overwhelming favorites. Essentially, the Women's World Cup has been about the rest of the world trying to knock off the United States.
Okay. Sterling in Gallatin up next. Hey, Sterling.
How you doing today, Buck?
Great.
I wanted to say, I think it was over the weekend where the reporter was asking Paula Badosa, I think it was her name, at Wimbledon, to questions that like she won the actual match, but she actually lost the match.
Oh no,
that happens in tennis. No. Like I've seen those interviews done. Thank you for the call, Sterling. That's a really good nominee. Just because I've seen it happen before, I didn't see the exact interview that Sterling's referencing, but. They will interview people. Like, do you remember after Serena lost? Now, Serena's different. Serena lost her last match, and they're interviewing Serena instead of the woman who won the match. Now, obviously, that moment is about Serena Williams. Obviously, Serena is going to, be the headline. Unfortunate for the one. And, it's telling that I can't remember the name of the woman who beat her. I'm sure tennis fans can.
Yeah.
But as a casual tennis observer, I'm not going to be able to come up with the woman's name off the top of my head because she was playing Serena Williams. But I've seen this happen in tennis more than other sports where sometimes they'll interview the woman who lost the match or the man who lost the match as a means just because they're the bigger name in that situation, which takes away from the person who has just knocked off said star in a particular instance, which I think hurts the growth of the game in that way. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen enough for me to notice. It's a good nominee. So who do you like the best, Wade James or Sterling?
Wade James or Sterling?
Oh, well, I mean, there are still people calling in.
We have Chris with his next submission. I think it's between Wade and Sterling.
How do you know it's Chris?
Because I'm watching Jackson type it out on
Mine
the call
doesn't
screen.
say Chris.
Look at your phone.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it takes a minute, I guess, to show up on the actual screener. But
what?
I don't know who should be the leader.
Have I been doing this wrong the entire 3 years we've been in here?
Between Wade with the incorrect graphic,
it's a pretty good one,
with Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s nationality, and Sterling with the reporter interviewing a tennis player as if she had won the match when she had in fact lost. Oh, I don't know.
Let's see if Chris has something to knock either of them off.
Yeah,
shall
I think
we?
Sterling might be the leader. I don't know.
Well, listen, Lucas. Lucas is the keeper of the tickets. This is how these things go. Chris in Nashville up next.
Hey, what's going on, Buck?
What you got for me?
This past weekend, I fell at the baseball tournament, having a pretty good tournament. We played against a team. They had a nice raucous, fan group. Dad tells the pitcher, "Hey, pitch him in, pitch him high." And when he did, my son hits a home run that still hasn't landed yet. Unfortunately, as soon as he hits the home run, my son gets him. We get immediately asked for a birth certificate. So that's the dumbest thing in sports to me.
Yeah, that's for a birth certificate after hitting a home run.
I mean,
it's like
that is
walking off the field and getting a quote unquote random PED test.
I think Chris should win. Jackson just gave me a double thumbs up back there. That is a late but great submission by Chris.
All right, let's give it to Chris.
Okay, now Sterling, Wade, if you want the opportunity to win tickets, or if anybody else wants the opportunity to win tickets to the bowling event on Thursday, we will be giving another pair away tomorrow during our show and another pair away while I'm on with 3HL live from Kings Bowl in Cool Springs ahead of the Split Happens bowling event. So congratulations to Chris. And we'll have a couple more opportunities for you guys to win tickets. Like I said, 5 more tickets available for purchase. But we set some tickets aside. Actually, Two Rivers Ford set some tickets aside. We're very appreciative of the great folks at Two Rivers Ford who always contribute to the charitable causes that we do around here. They bought 2 teams to make this possible so that we could, they bought 2 teams of 4 to make this possible for us to be able to give you guys some tickets for those of you who would not be able to get some in time as they continue to get close to a sellout. 615-737-1045 is the number. Adam wants to know, what time do the doors open? I assume you can get there anytime you want to. What time I'm going to be there. 3HL is going to be there at 3. I assume they're open at 3.
Yeah, come hang out whenever.
Go whenever. I think the bowling, you can start bowling officially at 7 based on the information at the website. By the way, the website, 1045thezone.com, where you go to purchase your tickets. And again, those proceeds go to Home Street Home. Let's talk about this Anthony Richardson, Joe Milton comparison that's been happening of late. So, of course, Anthony Richardson, the 3rd overall selection in this year's draft, the Florida quarterback who had 13 starts to his name, who has tested better than any player at his position at the combine, who is by, many measures, literal measurements, the most athletic player that we have seen at that position. He went third overall this year, despite there being a small sample size, despite people in college football looking around and being like, wait, that guy? That guy's the one that you want? And the entire league looked around and said, yes. Yes, we do. Out of here with Hendon Hooker and the productivity. Out of here with Will Levis and potential, even though 2022 was a bleep show. Anthony Richardson, bar none, third overall pick in that draft. And if he hadn't have gone third, he would have gone very soon thereafter, it would have seemed, be it Las Vegas or another team down the line. So now as we watch Tennessee Day on the SEC Network, Joe Milton is starting to get those comparisons. And I cannot understand, as I watch Joe Milton right now, based on the way that they play, other than the way that they physically are shaped and look.
He's about to rifle one into the back of the end zone, I believe, for Squirrel White.
So second down, 45 seconds and counting to go in the third quarter.
You forget how close this game was. It's 14-6, Tennessee with the lead with 45 seconds left in the third.
Well, Clemson's defense was great. Clemson's defense made plays in that game. Cade Klubnik just couldn't get anything done.
Yeah, Clemson was not opportunistic on offense, missing field goals, the botched fake field goal in the first half. So certainly they didn't take advantage of opportunities. But yeah, I think Milton's about to throw a strike here to the back of the end zone to make it a 2-possession game and never look back.
Do you want to call it?
Ball on the 14, 2nd and 6, clock ticking, 11 seconds in the third. Milton takes the snap, pump fake, steps up in the pocket, throws a dart, back of the end zone, caught, touchdown, Tennessee. Squirrel White doing the penguin dance. I love it.
No, for God's sakes. Is this what my entire football season is going to be like with you two? I refuse. I had to deal with Bert, the Ravens fan, all last year. That's Ramon's problem now. I'm sure that's going to go well. And now I've got Jackson and Lucas just covering themselves in orange. That's fine. All right, so the athleticism of Joe Milton, though. Joe Milton is athletic. Joe Milton does backflips. Joe Milton is a giant. Joe Milton is built like Cam Newton, as was Anthony Richardson to an extent. They are not in the same classification as of an athlete. Now, we weren't talking about Anthony Richardson as a draft prospect the way that all of a sudden the league looked around and said, he's how big and he can run how fast?
Yeah, everybody else was like, you got to show it. Going into last season with Anthony Richardson, it was okay, you got to show it.
But
and he did in week one. He was electric.
In week one, there were moments. Let me not denigrate Anthony Richardson. Like, he earned a degree of that. But, like, at the end of Anthony Richardson's season, when he opted out of the bowl game, and we all looked around and said, he's declaring for the draft? I had many, many questions about what the logic was there, and the league clearly had no question about him whatsoever. I don't think we're having those same conversations around Joe Milton.
But are people saying that they're the same player? I feel like that's not what people are doing when they compare the two.
Okay. So how are you receiving those comparisons? Because the comparisons have been surface level that I've seen. I have not seen anybody who I trust to be why was that your computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my bad.
Keep the computer pot off.
Nobody knows what that means. But I have seen surface level comparisons being made because of the physical stature of these two players, and they both have pretty incredible arm strength.
I think that the main thing, sorry, you didn't finish there.
Well, no, I just basically it's surface level. The comparisons I've seen are surface level, and when those comparisons are made, I said, I go back and say, do you actually watch these guys? Because how they play and like the mechanical issues that you have with Richardson are not the same that you have with Joe Milton. I'm not saying that Joe Milton's mechanics are good. I'm just saying that they are not the same issues.
I think it is as simple as Anthony Richardson, player that had all the traits, all the measurables, underperformed, was inconsistent at the collegiate level, tested insanely well, and somebody's going to take a chance on him for that. Joe Milton, all the traits, all the measurables, all the athleticism, although not as much athleticism as Anthony Richardson.
We'll see how he tests.
Yeah. Has been inconsistent up and down throughout his career. Obviously, he's going to have an entire season to disprove that narrative coming up. but is probably going to test well, not as well as Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson tested historically well at the combine. But all those boxes are checked for both of those guys. Milton's going to test well. Somebody's going to take a chance on him because he can throw the ball 120 yards and he's 6'4" and he's athletic. All those things also true for Anthony Richardson. I don't think it's people saying they're the same player blanket statement. There are just enough similarities to where people look at the process. It was a very unique process with Richardson, right? We hadn't seen anything like that in the draft process.
No.
Can you tell me another quarterback that got drafted that high that had that little of a resume as a college football player? So much of Richardson is potential, traits, athleticism, testing.
I almost think it helps him. I almost think it helps him that there was less film. Just because that you're trafficking more in the potential than you are in the film.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Your
saying?
imagination can run wild, right?
Like I think that the thing that hurts Milton is that we've seen Milton play more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I almost think there's a degree of it. In fact, I know there's a degree of that that's being done with Anthony Richardson. And given the landing spot of Anthony Richardson, I think it makes a ton of sense why he ended up going where he did. But now with Milton, Greg Cosell and I are going to do the entire podcast today. Later this afternoon, Greg and I are going to tape at 2:30 Central Time. And the whole podcast is going to be on Milton as a pro prospect. And I'm going to ask Greg about these comparisons, these surface-level comparisons that are being made. And he'll be able to articulate really, really well the fundamental differences between the two players as the NFL sees them, not as college quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a substantial difference as prospects.
And they are different players. Also, Milton, way older, right? I mean, Milton has been in college football since COVID.
Anthony Richardson is 20.
Yeah. So, I mean, Milton was the starter at Michigan in 2020, and here we're 2023, and he's going to start for Tennessee this year. So, I don't know that if Joe Milton has a similar type of season that Richardson had last year, he would still be drafted top 5 because there's so much more of a sample size. And you're much more willing to take a risk on a 20-year-old with that much potential than a 24-year-old or 25-year-old, whatever Milton's going to be draft time. So there are a lot of differences, but I don't think people are saying they're the same player. I think they're saying it's the traits, it's the measurables that are attractive about them, not so much the sample size of what they've done on the field, which Milton still has time to disprove.
615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in at any point, we'd be glad to have you. Lucas brought up the fact that he's been watching All-Star Week activities without having paid attention to Major League Baseball at all during the regular season. We're going to, I guess are we doing MLB All-Star Game observations coming up next?
I suppose.
The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you as you age. Your body changes as you go through that process, and things like erectile dysfunction can start to develop. If you are somebody who's been dealing with this as an issue, the Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you with their great support system. They have an experienced staff who will help you work through that process to find that treatment path that makes the most sense for you as an individual, because no one-size treatment fits all. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has 2 locations, one here in downtown Nashville, their newest office in Cool Springs, and they will work with you to make sure that they find the treatment path that makes the most sense. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has so many different options for you, no matter what it is that you're experiencing in life as you continue to age. So check out all their great options today at thetennesseemensclinic.com. That's thetennesseemensclinic.com. All right, so apparently we're being protested today, and nobody told me.
He's boycotting.
Who's boycotting?
Robert Walsh is boycotting this radio show.
Who? I don't know who that is. What is the genesis of this person's boycott?
He's in here. So are you here to announce your boycott? Because I think
that would be an effective tool.
Most boycotts do have to be announced.
I mean, it can be announced, but if he's doing it on this show that he is allegedly boycotting, then he's undermined his own boycott, yes?
I think he's just tired of you taking him for granted. I think that's what it is.
Your thoughts?
I'm here to speak with one Lucas Panzica. I'm not going to acknowledge anyone else in the room. Jackson, good to see you. I would like to announce my boycott of the show that we're currently speaking on. I will not be making any more appearances on this show. I will not be making imaging or sounds or funny little noises for this show, and I will not be adding any humor to this show. It's a sad day, but I feel like my talents have been unappreciated for far too long, and it's just something. Sometimes you got to stand up for yourself when no one else will. So I will say my demands could be met to potentially bring me back on this show.
What are your demands?
I would like Buck to buy me something off Amazon Prime Day. If something is purchased for me from Prime Day, I can give him an acceptable wish list that I'll share at a later date.
Any examples?
He's
of
like
items?
one of these influencers that makes a list and posts it on their Instagram story that nobody's going to click on.
Lucas, I know you're kind of new to radio, but we can't pause that long, when we're talking, because it just sounds like dead air. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a couple things. I noticed a desk, an L-shaped desk with lights, and
can't pause that.
It's okay. I won't post it, but I'll put my wish list out later if anybody else wants to support the bird habits. I won't do that. That's so pretentious. Anyway, so I'm going to give Buck a list of things that he could purchase me anything off this list, and perhaps I would rejoin this show.
It took me way too long to get the dead air thing. Okay, I support you. I'll miss you, but I support you, and I hope your demands are met as soon as possible, because I do think some people who will not be named have taken you for granted from time to time. And I say that despite the fact that you jump scared me this morning. And you got me good.
Dang,
you got me really good this morning.
I made you cuss out loud. I'm sorry. And I wish we would have recorded it so everybody could have enjoyed it, but some moments are just for me and you, and maybe that's why other people feel left out of our relationship. They're jealous of the friendship, the camaraderie that you and I share, and I think that's where some of the animosity comes from. So to spare you from that animosity, to spare you from a perhaps rageful gaze, I'm going to step away from the show and let you guys just reconvene and whatever you guys were talking about fun, or maybe because that said person likes to complain about things that maybe aren't so much fun, maybe they're complaining about something they didn't want to watch currently. So I'm going to step aside.
I support you. I also support being jump scared. I enjoy being jump scared.
That's a good way to start your morning.
Keeps you on your toes, yeah. It's like a cup of coffee.
People are now submitting things that are on Bert's Amazon list. He says, Tyler Dial in the F&M Bank chat says, it's just going to be a box of Pokemon cards, a pair of new Crocs, and a fancy lighter.
Caleb on the F&M Bank chat says, I will boycott the show until Robert is done with his boycott.
Jameson says, didn't Bert just get a bunch of Pokemon cards from Buck?
You did bring him some.
So I guess I fail to understand where on the heels of being given a great gift that another individual might feel it necessary that on the heels of that kindness to then further demand more things as a product of that kindness. It's quite confusing to me, least of which an individual who during a commercial break compared himself to Robin Williams by saying that he laughs too often at his own jokes. Robin Williams doesn't laugh at his own jokes. I must have missed that portion of the comedic proceedings. I had no idea that we were in the presence of greatness, and that if I have not been properly appreciating those talents, then it's on me.
I do love the concept of Bert holding himself to the standard of Robin Williams.
Why are you still in here?
I think we should all have that type of standard. But I do think you have taken him for granted.
Go ahead, laugh at your own joke. I see it on your face.
He's holding it back.
You're moving your mouth around as if to try and restrain your own laughter at your own bit that you have not successfully gotten off the ground.
If I was going to respond to some auspicious ghost.
In a hypothetical world where you responded.
It's not the right use of that word.
I would say that maybe you should buy me a thesaurus then. I would say
it's Prime Day.
I would say that I was not comparing myself to Robin Williams. I was simply saying that funny people do not laugh at their own jokes, and that I laugh at it too much, almost as a mechanism to be like, this is funny, right? Because I know my laugh is also kind of funny. So it's just something.
It's born of insecurity, is what we've determined.
God, I wish I could hear what he was saying. I really wish
Dead
I could.
air.
The problem is, and maybe this is something that you could look into, Buck, when you're trying to better yourself, you kind of look within and see the things that might perhaps be wrong with you, if I was talking to Buck. And I would venture to say that's something that Buck doesn't do enough.
He's broken character like 4 times. He keeps talking to me and then remembers that he's not supposed to be talking to me.
I haven't looked at this voice once. I haven't cast my gaze his way once.
Chad on the FNN Bank chat
says, it's not dead air.
Chad says it's like the cool guys and explosions bit. Cool guys don't look at explosions. Comedians don't laugh at their own jokes. Although I think a lot of stand-up comedians do laugh at their own jokes. Steve says Buck is full-on addicted to Bert. If this show wasn't during business hours, the ultimate drinking game would be to drink every time Buck says Robert or Bert.
Steve is also the person who regularly sends me DMs on my Twitter demanding that Bert be fired, and then I remove him entirely from the show. So the fact that Steve Lamb has any opinion whatsoever about Robert's presence on the show.
Is it the same guy?
It is literally the same person. Steve, I promise you nobody cares.
But I think Steve is right.
That's me taking proper appreciation for Robert. That's the closest thing to sticking up for him. In fact, based on his own admission, because now we're talking through you, because I think that I'm going to take this cause upon myself and talk to him through a third party. He recently, not 5 minutes ago, admitted that nobody would stand up for him but himself. I have literally just stood up for him. To my knowledge, I'm the only person who does on a regular basis.
No, but you
I think that I'm the one being taken for granted here.
Oh,
because the only reason that this smug, red mother bleeper sitting in front of me has any degree of confidence in this studio whatsoever is because I keep putting a microphone in front of his face.
But I don't think you can do that, though, because you pick and choose. Like, yes, you brought in Pokemon cards. Yes, you stuck up for him on Twitter.
Like a child. Like a parent would a child.
But every other day you berate this man. Say, why are you in this studio? So those gifts do not buy you the right to berate Robert Walsh on a day-to-day basis.
Are we having counseling right now?
What were we going to talk about here?
Baseball.
Oh, the MLB All-Star Game. It was fun to watch, but this is better.
If I may talk to the intermediate for a moment, he keeps throwing the Pokemon cards in my face.
Intermediary.
The intermediary. I think the word came to me like a dream.
Jackson said it in his ear.
Those Pokemon cards were a make-right gift. Those Pokemon cards were because he was late to the studio, and you and I kept this show afloat. I'm down in the hull of this boat, putting my fingers in holes, making sure it doesn't take on water. And that was the reason I got the Pokemon cards, not because of some level of merit that I've accomplished or accumulated at my time on this show.
He's right. He doesn't deserve it for merit.
And I will say, Buck has done a great job of giving me a platform, but simply, this is the last thing I'll say on it, I think I've outgrown him.
Oh. How long will this boycott last? Tune in to find out.
That means go to break.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Major League Baseball, Craig Kimbrell pitched the ninth for the National League and got the save for the NL to beat the AL in Seattle 3-2. It's the NL's first win in the All-Star game since 2012. Regular season will pick back up on Friday. The saga continues at Northwestern. Head coach Pat Fitzgerald, after being fired from his alma mater for allegations of widespread hazing within the football program, could set up a legal battle with the university as his attorney says that Northwestern has fired him for cause. Only 2 games remain before the Major League Soccer regular season goes into a month-long break for Leagues Cup. Tonight, Nashville Soccer Club returns home to Geodis Park, hosting Philadelphia Union in an Eastern Conference matchup. Kickoff at 7:30. Pregame coverage right here on The Zone starts at 7. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. We'll see how much longer this protest lasts. Convenient that the protest waited until there was only 1 hour left in the radio show and he was ready to go home. That makes a lot of sense. 615-737-1045 is the number. That's how you jump in. You can at any point. While we're still with you until 1 o'clock, we are going to go through the best fit for rookie quarterbacks who landed in the AFC South. With some Greg Cosell analysis that I think you're going to enjoy. New episode of The Install with Greg comes out later today. We're going to do a full episode on Joe Milton. Looking forward to getting into the details on that in particular. I assume at this point you've decided to move on from your MLB All-Star Game update, your observations. You've decided to detach yourself. I had you for a moment on baseball, and then I saw it. Leave your interest, leave your eyes very quickly.
I enjoyed watching the All-Star game yesterday. That was the gist of it.
Okay, very good. And that concludes our baseball coverage for the season. Jackson's making it happen back there, and we'll be happy to take your phone calls, and we will be giving away Sounds tickets in just a little bit. Not yet. Not yet.
Don't dial that number.
Not yet.
Tamarian McDonald just picked off Cade Klubnik with 7.5 minutes to go in the Orange Bowl. Tennessee with the 14-point lead.
And no, it's not deja vu. It's Tennessee Day on the SEC network. So they're running all kinds of Tennessee games. I'm sure the Alabama game is going to be played at some point today.
It'll be a prime time slot on the SEC network today.
I am certain that they're going to get a lot of run out of a lot of different Tennessee athletic events. But in the meantime, Will Levis in Tennessee has been talked about a lot. We played that Robert Mays clip for you yesterday, the idea that a lot of people seem to be detached from reality around this football team as it relates to their starting quarterback position.
Where he talked about imagining DeAndre Hopkins toiling away in Nashville with a rookie quarterback as if Will Levis is the starter.
That's correct. Now, perhaps he means beyond 2023, but based on the way that he said it, it made it sound like Robert Mays expects that Will Levis will be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans at some point beyond injury.
Which is a fair discussion when you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins, and let's say he was offered a 2-year deal. That's a fair question from D-Hop saying, who the hell's my quarterback in 2024?
Mm-hmm. But at this point, the situation for Will Levis and Hendon Hooker are more alike than the situations for Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud. Those two players, the latter two, they're probably going to start right away. Stroud for sure. Richardson, it seems almost implausible to imagine him not the starting quarterback when the Colts open up with their Week 1 opponent. I don't know who the Colts Week 1 opponent is off the top of my head. But either way, Jim Irsay saying basically after the draft, yeah, he's going to start. And when the owner says it, I'm going to go ahead and take the owner's position that that is something that's going to come to fruition given how much influence that owner has had as of late.
Jags.
Oh, really?
In Indy. They go Jags Texans weeks 1 and 2.
Didn't they do that last year too? They had like their first like 4 or 5 games were all divisional games last year. It's wild.
I think the Jags and Colts had already played each other twice just a few weeks in. Yeah, because didn't the Jags kind of pummel the Colts early season?
Yes, I believe they went to Jacksonville and weren't they shut out I think that was
right.
It was like 22-0 or 24-0.
That was one of those
like
Matt Ryan turnover games.
Well, it's just the city of Jacksonville for the Indianapolis Colts franchise is a house of horrors, and I don't know why it shouldn't be that way.
Right. What's the stat? They haven't won there since 2014.
Luck. It's the last time that they won in Jacksonville. It's an actual house of horrors down there for them. So it's always a weird thing. But this game is in Indianapolis. They're opening up at home. Either way, Richardson is expected to be the starter. So is Stroud in Houston. And Levis will, theoretically, provided that Ryan Tannehill stay healthy, have more time to kind of get a handle on this thing. Hell, he needs more time to beat out Malik Willis at this stage of the game. Because you sent me something from NFL Rookie Watch about Malik Willis. It's more videos of him working at Vanderbilt's indoor practice facility at this point, or somebody sent it to the group. Or maybe somebody just sent it to the group. I think I got tagged in it. Either way, somebody sent it to me on social media. And it was from that NFL Rookie Watch account that I know you took some issue with. Something was it this, or was there something else that you took issue with on NFL Rookie Watch?
I don't remember. But was it about Malik outperforming Levis?
It was about Malik outperforming Levis.
So that's Jim Wyatt. That is essentially aggregating Jim Wyatt in his mailbag when he was asked about it, saying that Malik has outperformed Levis in the offseason.
And I feel like people are surprised by that. But I would say to you, if the player who has had a full year in the NFL is not outperforming the guy who just got here, then it is a massive indictment of the player who has previously spent a year in the NFL, has 3 starts and 8 games that he appeared in last year. Malik Willis is absolutely outperforming Will Levis. And that should have been the expectation. That people would expect otherwise is kind of bizarre to me. Does that make sense? Because I feel like people are going to take what I'm saying as counterintuitive, when to me it's the most obvious thing in the world. Of course Malik Willis was going to outperform Will Levis in the spring. Malik Willis has been in an NFL system. He's worked with his coaching staff. He knows these receivers. Levis just showed up. Levis may have run a similar offense, but Malik has also been running that offense for a year. I don't understand how anybody could look around and draw the conclusion that Levis would have been clearly and obviously expected to outperform Malik Willis upon his immediate arrival. That's not something that I would have put together. And if it had happened, it would have been the biggest talking point of the offseason. It did not. That's why it's not. So at this point, looking around at the fit for these rookie quarterbacks, right? And we've done a version of this before, but I do think it's worth revisiting. Kind of where these guys are at this stage. Ahead of training camp, we've got, 13 days before the Titan. I think as of the 25th, everyone will have reported for training camp. How soon they get on the field after their report date it varies from team to team. But the Titans will be on the practice field the 26th, and we'll all be in the building as of the 25th. So ahead of that date, and ahead of all these teams opening up training camp, well, we know where Richardson and Stroud are slated. They're slated to start for their teams. But how much does that contribute to the fit that they currently have, and how much is that going to benefit them respectively? Who of these 3 do you think is most likely to succeed right away?
Now, give me more context on right away. Are you talking about how we're going to look at it at the end of their rookie season? Or are you talking about the first 6 weeks?
When we're talking about the first month of the season.
Okay.
Who do you think has had a better, let's call it 4, I don't know if there's 4 games in September for everybody, but let's call it the first 4 games. First quarter of the season. Well, I guess it's not technically the first quarter of the season because there's 17 regular season games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, first 4 games. Who do you think we are talking about as being the best of these 3 rookies? Because Levis, honestly, Levis should be taken out of this equation because unless Ryan Tannehill tears his ACL in training camp, God forbid, then Will Levis is not going to be a week 1 starter. So between Stroud and Richardson, who do you think is best equipped to have the best month right out of the gate?
Has to be between those 2, not including Bryce Young in this. The answer between those 2 is so easy for me. It's not, to be honest, Richardson's not in this discussion for me.
It's Young and Stroud.
Yeah, it's between Young and Stroud. Richardson's going to struggle early. To me, there's no reason to believe that Anthony Richardson can come out of the gate. I understand that there's training camp, and he's had what was the quote from Shane Steichen? From
next OTAs, level stuff.
Doing next level stuff at OTAs.
Literally talking about footwork.
But I'm sorry, 1 training camp before you take a snap as an NFL player is not enough to me to say that Anthony Richardson is NFL ready, given the last time we saw him play football and what we saw from there. So to me, tell me if you disagree, but we're talking about the first month of the season, it's a conversation about C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young.
Well, I'm having the conversation more on the purview of this division.
Okay, then Stroud.
Because Young, I think, is in a different classification than either of the other two that we're talking about. The size is the only thing that makes us not consider him the next great talent at that position, because we've never seen a player that size at that position succeed.
Best improviser out of that group, right? Best athleticism, running ability.
Best both within and outside of structure.
Yeah.
That's Bryce Young is set up and has set himself up by nature of where he's coming from, what he can do right now to be the most successful of this group. I'm not talking about Bryce Young for the purposes of this exercise, because I do think he's on a different level. But you're saying that Stroud is clearly and obviously above Richardson to you, regardless of what their offseason has looked like beyond what a training camp does for them.
Yeah, who is leading them through this process obviously matters. The situation in front of them obviously matters. But I'm going to base my opinion more than anything on the last time we saw these guys play football. And the last time we saw C.J. Stroud play football was the best performance of his career against the best defense in college football, stocked with NFL players. So, yeah, it's got to be C.J. Stroud. I mean, is it close? To me, it's not close.
I don't think so. And I haven't been at their respective OTAs, so I can't speak to that specifically. But I think that the best assessment for all of us to use is not practice field clips and things like that, but the last time that we saw them play football. That's fair. So Stroud would theoretically be better set up for success. Jameson says when AR sees full speed football, talking about Richardson, he'll look like a deer in the headlights. And there may be that. There's going to be that moment for all of them.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to Levis. It's going to happen to Stroud, Young, Richardson, all of them. Hell, it happens to accomplished quarterbacks. It happens to Mahomes. It happens to Burrow. It happens to all of these guys at various points.
I mean, such part of the appeal of Richardson is his youth, right?
Yes, he's 20 years old.
Does that not mean that there is a much longer road to get to? What's at the end of that road is what's appealing, but that's a long road for a guy who's 20.
Well, not necessarily, because the road starts right away. The road is now.
Right, but I'm talking about the road to get to the point that you are a starting caliber NFL quarterback, that you are what people see in you in the draft process.
I think that I understand what you're saying, but I think if you're going to call him a starting caliber quarterback and he's a starting quarterback, then he is inherently now a starting caliber quarterback. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm
the finished product, the road to the finished product.
Well, none of them are a finished product, but I get what you're trying to say. The point being, the reason that I'm willing to kind of grade on a curve, or I'm more interested in Richardson than any of them, right? Because of that thing that you just outlined, that Richardson is the one that we know the least about.
His last appearance in a football game, in fact, we could talk about his last two.
Well, I'm trying to get to the Greg Cosell audio, if you let me.
Well, before you do that,
I don't have time. It's 12:15.
His second to last appearance was against Vanderbilt, 25 of 42, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Looks good at surface level. He made some bad decisions in that game. Florida State was his final appearance, 9 of 27, 198 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
I'm over here trying to make eye contact. I'm like, go to Greg. The reason why I'm most interested in Anthony Richardson is because where and with whom he's just landed. The Gambling Clinic is where you can go if you or a loved one has experienced issues related to gambling, whether you're financially overextending yourself, whether you're getting into arguments at home about it. The Gambling Clinic is a great resource for you. Dr. James Whalen at the University of Memphis established this program back in 1999, and they are there to help you or whomever in your life has experienced these issues. They have a great process that you will work through on a week-by-week basis as an individual approach to identify the issues that are causing you to have problems problems that are a result of gambling. About 5% of people report having issues with gambling, but the vast majority of people gamble for fun without any problems at all. The Gambling Clinic is here to not discourage you from gambling, but to help you gain the capacity to identify those unhealthy habits that may cause you issue. Go to the Gambling Clinic, thegamblingclinic.com to find out more information about their great program. This project is funded by the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. For those of you who had 12:30 as the amount of time that the protest would last, bet the under. He's just throwing his hands up in the air as if now he's going to continue his boycott. But Robert Walsh is, in fact, in the studio. Lucas is shoveling half a 7-Eleven empanada into his mouth. And Jackson, welcome to the show, bud.
Appreciate it.
I don't think I see the two. Lucas is choking because he hasn't chewed his empanada because he eats things the way that a pelican does.
I ate it too fast.
What an awful sound. Bert's giggling like a kid who's gotten somebody else in trouble in class for something that he's done. Because he knows what it is to get the kind of stare that I just gave Jackson at the end of the break. Tell people what you did. Tell people the advice that you got, and then tell people what you did.
So you don't always throw to break in a traditional fashion. Would you say that?
I would say that's an accurate assessment.
So Bert was telling me to kind of feel it, and I felt wrong. I definitely felt I hit the wrong button. And we went to break. We were late, so I mean, it all worked out.
While I'm teeing up audio, you read it as, oh, no, it's just he's come to an awkward stop. This is my chance to hit a button.
They're right next to each other, if that makes it any better.
Lucas and Bert have been coaching Jackson on how to handle all of this.
How to Deal with Buck is the book I got.
How would you say that what does that instruction manual look like? Because if Bert had anything to do with it, I imagine it was drawn in crayon.
Entitled How to Give a Buck.
Shall we hear Greg Cosell talk about Anthony Richardson?
We might as well now. Can I please? You're going to send me to break again.
Obviously, I evaluated all these players before the draft. Buck, you know that. I that's what I do. I have no idea who's going to draft them. Now, as I evaluate players, particularly quarterbacks, I tend to think in terms of what kind of offense would they work best in, particularly early in their careers. Because obviously, no matter how much a quarterback has great traits and other things that are positive, like a Bryce Young, it's still an adjustment and a transition. There's still a projection involved. So think of it this way. We know who the head coach now of the Indianapolis Colts is, right? Shane Steichen. Where did he come from? He came from the Eagles. Here's what I typed as my last line in my transition for Richardson, okay? Not knowing this. I did Richardson 2 months ago. I said I could see Richardson early in his career working in an offense similar to the Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts, with multiple run game concepts that start with the quarterback and a pass game that works off the run game with defined reads and throws, given the greater predictability of defensive alignments and coverages. So I saw Richardson having his best opportunity to be successful early in that style of offense, and that's exactly the offense he's going to be in. And you know what? He's going to start week 1.
So that's Greg Cosell explaining why Anthony Richardson is going to be the week 1 starter for the Colts. And at this point, the fit is why I'm willing to give Anthony Richardson the benefit of the doubt. The question that we were talking about is which of the two day 1 starters, basically, between Stroud and Richardson is going to be best equipped for success. And the answer, the answer, two people are going to get that joke.
Keep it moving. The answer is Stroud, is what you're saying.
But I can't do the radio show anymore. Like, the idea that the two of you are in here now, there used to be a safe space. I used to have this entire thing to myself. And now, for some reason, you two have taken it over. You're making jokes. Burke's sending me his prime day wish list while I'm trying to listen to Greg Cosell breaking down Anthony Richardson. I can't get anything done now.
You know what the answer to that is.
Please talk over each other more. That'll be good radio.
The answer is to
Stop it. See, this is why you can't be trusted. You are so gratuitous with it. You're just going to run it into the ground.
I understand you give him benefit of the doubt to Richardson because of the fit, but was he not a fit at Florida? I mean, the fit doesn't mean the performance is up to par.
What you're assuming is a higher competency level of coaching with what the Eagles, the former Eagles offensive coordinator did with Jalen Hurts in ways that nobody else did with Jalen Hurts, right? Like, Lane Kiffin got the best version of Jalen Hurts as a college quarterback. And still, that was not enough to elevate Jalen Hurts to the heights that we had seen. The Eagles construct an offense around him. Also, the benefit of a rookie quarterback contract to build the best possible team around him so that when they finally evolved the offense to keep pace with where his skill set was at, because remember, they made the playoffs with the best running offense in football.
Yes.
Then pivoted once they had A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, all these skill position players that they could then key a better passing game off of. They evolved their offense in real time with his skill set.
I would argue with that notion about Kiffin because Lincoln Riley got the best version of Jalen Hurts as a passer in his final year at Oklahoma. But I see what you're saying. But there were struggles early on with Hurts, right? And Hurts, it's ironic because he was a second-round pick, but Jalen Hurts was a far better college player than Richardson coming out. So, I want to say Jalen Hurts was considered a better passer and a more complete player than Richardson coming out.
Oh, no, without question.
Right? But Hurts was a second-round pick, and Anthony Richardson was a top 5 pick.
Was
in the
the
draft.
third overall pick.
Right. So that there's a bit of irony in that. But Hurts had struggles, right? I mean, he wasn't a day one starter.
Correct.
He had time to sit behind Carson Wentz. And even then, when he came in that 2020 season, he completes 52% of his passes for just over 1,000 yards. This is in 4 starts for 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
If I'm Shane Steichen, my approach is going to be, all right, how can I get the closest version of the 2021 Eagles offense?
That was his first year as the starter.
I've got this offensive line that might still have something to it, even if it's not regarded as the best offensive line in football. Now, I've got Jonathan Taylor, who's coming off an injury-riddled season, and I've got Anthony Richardson, who I know can be hugely athletic and can make plays with his legs. Can I cobble together, while I'm still working on him as a passer, can I cobble together some semblance of what the 2021 Eagles offense looked like without quite the skill position talent that Philadelphia had, but still an offense that's predicated on the run with an offensive line that needs to get off the schneid and a running back who's looking for a bounce-back season after all kinds of injuries. That's kind of my logic with where Anthony Richardson and the Colts are at this point.
Robert has an indoor steam room on his list for Prime Day for you to win him back from his boycott.
You sent me an L-shaped desk looking structure.
What will you use that for?
It doesn't look like a desk. It looks like one of those things that people stand around at the airport to charge their phones and plug their laptops into. Like, that's what you're trying to put in your home.
There are a couple options of things that you could get me. Right now, I'm sending you a catio that extends out of your window so your cats can go outside without you having to open the door for them. I sent you a generator in case I lose power and I have to do prime time. See, all these things could impact you as well. When you come over, you could bring your cats. They can hang out in the catio. Maybe we have a Mai Tai in the backyard. There are different ways these things could impact our...
Are you talking to me now because I've acknowledged the fact that you have a wish list?
Potentially, the desk is the cheapest thing. You know, if you want the L-shaped desk that you're saying looks like one of the things people fight over at the airport to charge their phones on.
What's my Prime Day deal? What's my value of this L-shaped desk that you're trying to get me to basically buy your love back? Not that I didn't want it in the first place.
I'd go halvesies with you on it. I think it's $125. I'd go halvesies.
$125, $125,000.
Which one are you more willing to do? I don't want to sell myself short if you've got that kind of cash.
What kind of desk do we think Dan Snyder used to allegedly collude against John Gruden and get him kicked out of the league?
You're doing this more lately, where you try and pivot things back. You try and it's the Mickey Ryan influence in you.
Oh, yeah. Mickey has had a heavy influence on me in that regard.
He keeps trying to find ways to pivot to get me back on schedule. I don't see you trying to actively manipulate me.
Oh, I know it's obvious.
I would say it's a standing desk. Probably one of those standing that
Snyder used?
That could all back that, because standing desks do make you feel more powerful. That way, anyone that comes in your office, they have to sit down. You stand over them.
Derek Dooley famously had his desk on a platform when he was the head coach at Tennessee, so that when you walked into the head coach's office, you were looking up at the head coach of Tennessee football.
I'm surprised that's not what Buck's desk is. I'm surprised
you mean the full Cowherd?
that side of the studio is not elevated on a platform, much like Judge Judy. So whenever we have something to bring to him, I'm surprised he doesn't have his own bailiff to bring his live sheets to him.
Well, I do. See, that was called feeling it out. Look at you. See, we're figuring it out.
Thank you, Bailiff Jackson.
All right, so here is the story that Lucas is trying to get me to pivot to. Quote, he was free and clear how the leak of John Gruden's email led to the fall of Commanders owner Dan Snyder. All right, so this is really, really great investigative reporting by none other than Don Van Natta Jr. and Seth Wickersham at ESPN. It details Roger Goodell, Mark Davis, Dan Snyder, and John Gruden, how basically the leak of John Gruden's one-sided emails led to the league ultimately being able to find their reason to get rid of Dan Snyder. According to sources familiar with Roger Goodell's thinking, Davis found the timing of the leaked emails to be suspicious. Mark Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who ultimately ended up having to fire John Gruden for the homophobic and racially charged commentary that they found in his john.gruden@raiders.nfl.com email. You dope. You dope. I mean,
leave no room for doubt.
I just like, of all the...
Like, at least have a burner that says, like, gone Druden or something.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
right.
That would be better.
Because John Gruden, we were making jokes about the friend of John Morant there's a warrant out for a friend of John Morant's, his arrest, and I was making jokes off air about that being Josh Fall Guy. At this point, I know a lot of people are painting John Gruden as the fall guy, but also don't email the incredibly homophobic and racially charged things to whomever your emails were going to. Allegedly, the president of the Washington Commander football skins team, whose emails we did not see, it's worth noting. So here is Dan Snyder in the middle of all of this. Even though league officials in New York and a few team owners had known about the Gruden emails for months, as a part of an investigation into the Commanders and owner Dan Snyder and the toxic workplace culture inside this franchise, which I remind you, parenthetically, stems from the sexual assault and sexually charged allegations that were being lobbed against Dan Snyder.
A lot of them.
Basically an entire, and from many, many different women who came forward alleging different instances, things like cheerleaders being flown on team season ticket holder and suite holder events, and being basically, I don't want to say being used or being presented as a form of prostitution, but basically they were soliciting cheerleaders for their high rollers, basically, who invest in the Washington Commanders football skin team. Anyway, so even though league officials knew about the Gruden emails for months, as a part of that investigation, Davis had learned of them only the day before the initial report broke, when Raiders president Dan Ventrell told him, quote, "We've got a problem."
I would say so.
So there's ownership that's keeping Mark Davis in the dark. There's these emails that are being found out as a product of the Washington football team investigation, and the connection that is being drawn. It's a very, very thorough, well-reported, well worth your time if you're interested in what actually happens in the league. Because I think our biggest failing as an NFL media community, we consume the holy hell out of football and just sports in general. But there's not anywhere close to the level of interest and reporting in the business of the league and how these billionaires operate in the shadows and the things that they get done on a corporate level of the NFL that I would like to know a lot more about as a product of my job. And, maybe people don't care at that level, but still. So basically, they are putting together these statements. They're going through all these different things, and the New York Times ultimately publishes a story revealing new emails in which Gruden wrote that Goodell was clueless and anti-football.
But did those come from when he was the head coach of the Raiders? Like, this is when he's an analyst, right? On Monday Night Football. A lot of these are old emails.
So they're emails that yes, he was an ESPN NFL analyst. That's an important clarification for you to make. Yes.
They're dug up as a product, as collateral almost from the Washington investigation, but they're not from, this isn't from a year or two ago.
Right. There were many, many problematic emails over a period of time that started during his time as a as the ESPN NFL Monday Night Football analyst. So at this point, this is kind of the situation that we're at. Brent Doherty has just entered the studio. A rare appearance. It's an unmistakable voice. What's going on, bud?
What are y'all talking about?
Dan Snyder's a scumbag.
Also,
allegedly.
why do you have such a full room? What is going on here?
They won't leave.
I want to spice things up, Brent. It got boring.
It's like a sit-in?
You know, sometimes when stuff gets cold, you got to bring somebody else in, see what sticks, and we're just trying to see where we fit
Even
in
if
here.
he's just in the corner of the room, you know what I mean? Just put a chair over there.
I don't understand. One, but we got Bert a full-time job on another radio show. And yet he insists.
You're taking credit for that.
Well, it sure as hell wasn't him based on his performance around here.
It's adjacent. If you didn't want me near you, you should have put me on another show. It's the show adjacent to yours.
Well, 3HL didn't want you either.
Well, that's neither here
We
nor
didn't
there.
have room.
You're talking about a full house.
I may or may not need a fourth bowler, though.
Oh, is that why you're here? To recruit a
Well,
bowler?
I mean, Hunk was like begging to be somebody's fourth, and then come to find out he's got to do a baseball podcast at 7 o'clock. So he says he can bowl and do a podcast at the same time. I have my doubts.
Wait. Joe Hunk is not about to do the baseball podcast in the middle of the bowling event, is he?
That's what he says.
If he does that, did you just fart?
Backpack.
My mic is off. How would I feel? It was his
Backpack.
back.
Oh, okay. It's a backpack.
I can't believe he would do
Zone
that on
TV.
air.
You can see it. Backpack.
Am
I on camera?
I looked at Robert, not Brent.
I'm kind of ashamed that you would think I'd do something like that in here with you guys.
100% he would do that. I mean,
It wouldn't think
He's
twice.
boycotting the show, by the way.
The fact that the only reason Lucas is still in here is because we've made it 3 days without him burping in here, and I'm certain there's repercussions for you for that after you leave the studio. I'm sure Blaine is having to deal with them on a regular basis.
I did hear that Buck Reising had a problem with our music selections during 3HL coming back from break.
Not yours, Hunk's. So what
Deflect.
What I'm going to do is I don't know who selected the initial, what is labeled as 3HL's music in here. So I don't know. It's probably JT that I actually have a problem with, not actually Hunk.
JT's probably responsible for the majority of this.
JT just driving around Nashville, just taking shrapnel.
As if JT didn't deserve it. Are you kidding me? Somebody who's taken many, many pieces of shrapnel from JT over the course of my lifetime.
I mean,
JT.
neither me, Don, nor Slay have any control over the music. I will say that.
Agreed.
So that is a producer-driven thing.
We will get to your initial point here in a second. All I'm saying is if Hunk tries to do this baseball podcast from the bowling event, I'm going to yell at him in the background about how bad his music is the entire time that he's doing the podcast. I will completely ignore my obligations to everybody else. I'm just going to sit there and harass Joe Hunk. Anyway, your point, because you need a fourth bowler.
Yeah, so I've got two buddies that are going to bowl with me, and we all suck. So I'm going to throw the ball as hard as I can. I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's an effective strategy.
And,
like overhand?
Drink some beverages. Those are my goals.
Well, you can do all of those things.
And suck. And that's what I'll do.
You can do all of those things, including suck at bowling, unless you want to win Turn 9 tickets, because that is what goes to the best bowling score. If you have the worst bowling score, Brad, you get a Buck Reising Show T-shirt that is made by a friend of both the Buck Reising Show and 3HL, the woman who runs Polka Dot Sky Studios, who has made many T-shirts for Dawn on a regular basis, I believe. In fact, I think Dawn has a Buck T-shirt that Polka Dot Sky Studios made for her. So we've donned the sunglasses, which means Brent is serious. He needs a fourth bowler. Are we recruiting people? What is the call to action that we need for you?
I really don't know where I am with that. Because if I start recruiting people, then you end up with, 30 people.
Well, and I only have 5 tickets left.
I know. How about that?
Well, thank you.
Great job, dude.
Not great job, me. I'm just sitting here calling people desperately. Please, God, buy tickets to this thing.
Right, but I mean, the cause is great. Stephen Young, I tell the story all the time. Like the first time you met him, Home Street Homes, TN.org, go to the website, help out as best you can, sign up for like a monthly $10 deal, and that'll help these guys get people off the streets.
And you can Venmo them immediately.
Yes, which is a great way to give. But the first time you met Stephen Young, you had no idea who he was. You had no idea what his story was. You were on a microphone with us at Edley's during tornado relief in East Nashville, and Stephen Young sat down and talked about the homeless community. And how they were impacted by the tornadoes a couple of years ago, and you literally started crying on the radio.
Brought me to tears.
Yeah. And so now, because of that God moment, like you, in whatever form of that you believe, you developed this relationship with him, and you have expanded what you do with him, which has helped him greatly, and I really appreciate that.
No, I mean, are you kidding me? Look at the two of them, shocked that I'd show emotion.
Yeah, I don't see it.
And you don't believe? You think Brent's lying about me crying on air, or do you think I was lying? Do you think they were crocodile tears? Is that what you're alleging?
He brought an onion.
I was just gonna say. I think you've just changed, but maybe they were crocodile tears.
Yeah, I changed because I spend this much time with you two on a regular basis, and it's turned me into this.
Buck is an emotional person, and he's got a great soul and spirit. He does.
He also has changed a lot. Like, he used to be really good at getting to breaks on time.
I mean, we're 4 minutes late right now. I might have had something to do with that.
Got a break. PhD Weight Loss is where you go to get the best weight loss program out there. Ramon Foster, myself, so many other people is who they have helped, and they will do the exact same thing for you. PhD Weight Loss laid out my plan over the course of a 3-month process, and we were able to accomplish my goal, down 54 pounds, courtesy of the great people at PhD Weight Loss. They came up with a schedule and a dietary plan that was specific to me, just as they will do for you. So when you go to myphdweightloss.com, you will get that plan. You will get that regular check-in coaching from them to be able to adapt or change your program as necessary, because all of our bodies are different and we all have different needs. Again, myphdweightloss.com. Well, since everybody's here, we might as well do a poll segment with the whole squad. This has been a different iteration of the show every day. We had Ramon, Slay, and Sammy in here yesterday trying to keep me from getting into the studio because I showed up for a radio show that starts at 10 at 10:02. But until the music starts playing, I feel like I'm on time. We have in here right now Brett Doherty, 3HL, 3-6 on 104.5 The Zone. Bert, who continues to protest in the most odd way possible.
It's an interesting boycott.
It's a sit-in.
It's a sit-in.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he's already started to engage, even though he has not had his demands met. He came in here saying that he would not participate in the radio show today unless I bought him something for Amazon Prime Day, Brent. And he sent me a list.
What are you going to buy him?
I'm not buying him anything.
That's not true. That's not true.
Sauna.
Indoor sauna.
I've added some new things to the
What a
list.
bizarre request.
I guess all saunas are.
I was thinking like a bag of peanut butter M&Ms or something.
You're selling me too short, Brent. Here are some things that I've added to my list: an L-shaped desk, a Duramax XP 1300 EH portable generator. That's $8.99 if you want to buy something big off the list and really make me happy.
$8.99 or $899?
It's a generator, Buck. $899. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. It's got 9,000 RPM.
I do that just for my own personal satisfaction.
I'm telling you, rid the world of nose hair. Seriously.
Mine is ear, man. I've got these long hairs that just like I'll take a little scissor to
Why
them.
am I sitting next to him?
I'm not clipping my ear hairs now.
Right, there are 10,000. I've long complained about the fact that there are 10,000 microphones in here and it's just me on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden that changed very, very quickly, and now
who else can we pull in here?
Careful what you wish for.
Whoever's around.
What's Murphy doing over at TN?
Starting fires, I'm sure.
We've had some calls in that regard.
And the last thing on the list, maybe it's what you could bring in here. There are hedgehogs for sale, $200 a pop, Buck, and you could make me the proud papa of one hog.
A little Sonic.
I would do that if you. I would reasonably. One, I'm not buying a hedgehog off Amazon. That makes me feel like I'm contributing to some kind of hedgehog breeding farm.
Mm-hmm. It's a real website.
Okay.
I think it's Hogs for Sale.
That's a 4.
Yeah.
Not on a work computer, please.
Hogs,
exactly.
Number 4 sale.
Yeah, that's it. But in the meantime, I will not get you any of the things that you put on your Amazon Prime Day list. What I will get you is polls.
Zoinks, like, hey, Scoop, stop the count, stop the count. Yeah. The polls have closed. The votes are in. It's time for a poll update, Scoop. A poll update? Yeah. Zoinks, Scoop. Here's Buck Reising Show daily correspondent Lucas Panzica. Lucas Panzica? Yeah.
Do you have a favorite poll open, Brent?
I kind of like that one. I'm a Scooby-Doo guy.
Scooby-Doo guy?
Yep.
I'm an Austin Powers myself. That's my favorite.
It's Star Wars. You're both wrong. Star Wars is the best.
They're all good because it's the end of the show.
It's your show,
by
man.
Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What is currently the most important sports issue in Nashville politics? V-Love says what the Music City GP will look like while the future Titan Stadium is being constructed. Karen says that is the Titan Stadium. Daniel says, will Nashville SC sign a forward this summer?
Brent, we were talking. Okay. That's a matter of great national debate?
I think so. Big game tonight, by the way.
Yes, and Lucas will be on the call. But Brent, we had Steve Cavendish in here talking about the mayoral race, given that the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is in discussion, the Titan Stadium deal, and the idea of baseball in Music City and where the mayoral candidates have weighed in on that. Is there one that comes to mind for you?
I have not followed. I try to stay out of politics. It's funny, man. I minored in political science at Tennessee, and now I hate it. Yeah. I just hate all of it. Yeah. But the stadium deal is a stadium deal. Screw them. It's happening. Baseball's coming. Screw them. It's happening.
Oh, you're saying that much more definitively than Cavendish.
What was the other thing?
Wait, screw who? Who are you screwing?
Whatever candidates are against these things.
Oh, okay.
To my knowledge, none of them. They just haven't taken a position because they're scared because they're politicians.
How do Vols fans feel about Joe Milton being compared to Anthony Richardson? Thomas says it's a very lazy comp. Tyler says, I hope he has a better season than Richardson last year. I think that's the reaction from Tennessee fans. No,
for sure.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
It should be at this point. I just don't think it's an apt comparison based on the player.
I think he will be a much better college football player than Anthony Richardson, and I do think there are similarities in what will happen in the draft next year for Joe Milton.
And a much better college football player does not make him a better pro prospect. I need people to understand.
That's right. Those are two totally separate conversations.
That's right.
Which rookie quarterback is the best fit within their offense? 35% say it's Bryce Young in Carolina. 34% say it's Levis here in Tennessee. 17% go Stroud in Houston. Only 14% say Richardson in Indy.
Richardson is the one that I'm most curious about, but he's the biggest unknown, so I can't say him. I really do like Levis as a fit here in Tennessee, but Bryce Young is going to be the answer there.
I like Levis, too, because our friend Greg Cosell made this point, and he's done it consistently. That he ran 2 pro-style offenses in college. He went into the huddle, called a play, and had kill opportunities at the line of scrimmage. None of those other guys had that.
That matters.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Brent Doherty's job is not yet done. They're going to have a great show today on 3HL from 3 to 6. You guys are broadcasting live from Kings Bowl tomorrow. I'm very grateful for that. What's on 3HL today?
Coach Mack at 3:20. Former Titans cornerback Cortland Finnegan jumped out of an airplane attached to a guy today. He's going to talk about that at 4:20, and then Phil Steele will join us to talk college football.
I was supposed to do that. I think I just found out that I got bumped for Cortland Finnegan. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Good for you.